Good evening. My name is Kelley Wilkinson. I live in Marshall. I own and run Laughing Frog Farm. We have interns. We have over 300 acres. That's not all in production. It's much, much smaller in production. It's mostly woods. It's a whole cove. We do gather a lot of wild foods from the property. We grow a lot of different things, mostly for ourselves. We do some restaurant production. We don't sell directly to the public. I give a lot of stuff away to the public when I just cannot put it all away. I am a strong believer in food independence. I think every responsible adult in the United States and in the world, if possible, should have at least 3 months of food stored in their home. Just in case. It could be anything. We're so dependent on computers that if you've ever been in a store when the computer goes down, they cannot let you buy it even if you have cash. They cannot compute what to do without their computer. So I think it's really a good idea. If the weather turns bad, the electricity goes off, the gas runs out, whatever, you know, a hurricane comes, although we don't really get things like that here. In whatever situation, you will have what you need. You don't have to panic when the forecast calls for snow. You know you've got everything you need. Maybe not necessarily everything you want, but everything you need to get through it. So my cupboards look a lot like this. They don't look like normal cupboards. I don't shop at the stores and buy things in boxes. I buy things in bulk if I'm buying it, or I grow it, or I buy it in bulk at the tailgate market if I'm not growing it. So you don't have to grow your own food. Although I probably grow about 95% of mine. I say that we grow the cake and we buy the icing. You know, the chocolate, the coffee, the bananas, things that are just too hard to do in this climate. But regardless of your lifestyle, your diet, your preferences, if you love sweets and candy, you can still do this. You can still follow this method, do whatever you love to do. The first thing, I think the most important thing with all of these techniques, these are just basic techniques. Hopefully I'll be able to share a few tips that will, or something you haven't thought of or done before. So hopefully no matter how experienced you are, you'll walk away with something from this. And please don't hesitate to ask questions. But the first thing is you have to, before you start buying things in bulk and doing all this, be realistic about how your family eats and what you actually will eat. I guess I'm a prepper. I think that I have been since I could talk and before there was a name for it. But I don't buy things for catastrophes. I buy things that we're going to eat in bulk and I rotate them. So that even if something changed drastically in the world, we'd still be eating exactly the same. Our diet, our lifestyles wouldn't change. Well, our lifestyle, everybody's lifestyle would change, but it would be very, very familiar. You know, this is the things we have are the things we like to use and eat. So think about that and really think about what, you know, before you buy 50 pounds of anything, are you really going to eat it? I mean, I do buy things in 25 and 50 pound bags, and sometimes it takes me 5 or 10 years to get through it. But the day that I open it on year 9, it is just as fresh as the day that I put it in this. Canning jars are my best friend. This is a quart, this is a half gallon or 2 quarts. And these are the ones I buy the most of. And basically, anytime we ever do go to a regular store, we just try to swing by and get more. And you know, my husband used to roll his eyes and say, "We don't need more." And now he's bringing them home too, because he's putting his tools in and his screws and his nails. And it's like, it's so easy to see what you need and where it is. There's a gazillion uses for them. So the first thing that I want to talk about is, let me get my glasses. There we go. These are the methods we're going to talk about today, and each one of these could be an entire class. So I have to go fairly quickly to get the basics, but you can easily find this information online or in books if you're interested. And I've also got my contact information if you have any other questions. We're going to do dehydrating, freezing, vacuum sealing, pickling, fermenting, salting, and refrigeration. Okay. So the things that I'm thinking about, everything that I buy is organic. Everything I grow is organic. That's, to me, a real big safety measure these days. It just more ensures that your food is safe and healthy, which is what you want when you're putting something inside your body. I want it as fresh as possible. I want it local if possible. And then I'm thinking about the storage material. I personally do not like plastic. I don't trust it. I think that everything that we think is safe, maybe in 10 years they'll decide it's not safe anymore, and it does leach. So I like glass. And this is about the cleanest glass this is the cleanest glass you can get. This is Italian. They're called Fido. These are great, but they're good for liquids and fermenting. They're not good for dry storage. And I'll show you why. So the regular ones you get locally are the ones I use. I prefer live food if I can get it. So it's one of the major reasons I'm not interested in canning. With all of the health issues that I've had in my life, I need as much live energy, probiotics, enzymes as I can get to feel good and to keep being able to work a lot. So canned food just kind of leaves me cold. It's very, very dead. It's safe food to eat, but I don't know that you would thrive on it. I don't believe you would thrive on it. Whereas live food and fresh food, you do thrive. Obviously, what I said before, it has to be useful. You have to actually be able to use it. And then looking at price, and everybody says, Kelley, your plate's too full. And I'm like, which one? I have so many full plates, so I'm like juggling all of them. So it has to be easy and fast for me. I'm not going to spend 8 hours doing a beautiful pasta sauce. I just don't have that luxury in my life. So let's get on with it then. The first thing is dehydration. This is called an Excalibur. There's lots of different ways of dehydrating. You can build a solar dehydrator. I never have. It's on my list. I've tried some things that didn't work out well. But this thing is a little workhorse, and I love it. The lid lifts off. As you saw, it also falls off if you lift up the machine. So just a quick thing. There's this many trays. This model comes in, I think it's excalibur.com. It comes in half this size and this size. And honestly, everybody I know who's ever gotten the small one, I mean, they're cute and you think, oh, it would fit better. They outgrow it the first 3 hours. Why didn't I get the bigger one? So I definitely recommend this size. You'll be amazed. I mean, you can fit just a couple tomatoes on this when you slice them and put them all. So you need all of those spaces. So these are the trays, and this is the what is this called? Mesh. It's like a plastic mesh. They say all of their mesh is safe. You can replace this with something else. If you wanted to put metal in, you could, like a stainless steel. I think they actually do have a really high-end model that's all stainless steel that I don't have. And then it has this, which is called Teflex. And you can see it says Excalibur on it. I recommend getting the Excalibur brand. You can buy replacements on Amazon or other places, and they're half the price and they're half as flimsy as this as well. They also have some sheets like this that are, what is that stuff that they use for the, is it nylon? You know, in the baking sheets that you get? Yeah, they have some of those too, and I have one of those. I just couldn't find it for this class. But so what you'll do is just slice all of your food, lay it on, let me move, and fill it all up and then turn the machine on. So dehydration is a really beautiful method of preserving freshness, preserving flavor. I dehydrate a lot of things, and I brought these just to show you. These are Rose of Sharon flowers, which are absolutely delicious. If you all know what Rose of Sharon are, you probably maybe have one in your yard. They're gorgeous little, they're in the marshmallow family. And they're sort of like that mallowy, okra-y, gummy thing, and they're really, really good for your digestion, and they're great and beautiful and delicious in tea, or you can, cut them up in salads. So this is what they look like when they come out of the dehydrator. And then this is what they look like after I use another machine, that one. So I just wanted you to see the difference, and I'll explain more as we get onto it. They will shrink up in that, and that's really a cool thing. You can do like zucchini. You've got so much zucchini, right? Zucchini, eggplant. It makes the best jerky. It's like amazing if you don't mind having a vegetarian jerky. It's so delicious, and you do it the same kind of way. You would slice it and salt it, and let it sit for a few hours to draw out the moisture. And then you just put it and rinse it off and put it in a marinade. And you can do barbecue sauce, or you can do a salad dressing kind of sauce, or just salt and vinegar, or anything you want. And then you put it in the dehydrator, and it's absolutely delicious. You can, and the eggplant is like, I've had people not know that it was a vegetarian jerky. It's so good. All right, so here you can see, like, you can do any fruit, any vegetable. Some fruits will get crisp and some will get chewy. Like a banana will be really chewy. So if you want it, the things that you have maybe bought in the past that say banana chips, and they're really crunchy, those are deep fried, or they're covered with oil and they high heat. This has a beautiful, it has a timer and it has a temperature gauge, and it's really easy to set it. I do everything low. I like to make sure that it doesn't go over the point where it kills the enzyme, so I keep it between 105 and 108, and it takes anywhere from a few hours to a day, depending on. I can even do like dehydrated breads in this.
What thickness do you cut those bananas?
What temperature?
What thickness?
Oh, well,
do you cut the bananas?
You know what I usually do with my bananas? Instead of doing just that, I usually will put them in the food processor, just like 6 or 8 bananas in the food processor, turn it on. It turns into a beautiful liquid that I pour onto the Teflex. That's why you have this. Let's see if I've got some photos. You can see a few of the fruit leathers, and I'll make a fruit leather out of it. And you can even do things like, okay, really, really simple. Banana, just plain banana. You could put anything else you want, but say you're Sunday brunch, you want something fast and you want to impress. Just do bananas the day before. That morning, they're warm, they're pliable, they look like little pancakes, little crepes. Fill them with anything, roll them up, and people will go, oh, what is this? It's, especially when it's warm, it's just, what is this? It's so, so, so beautiful. But you can, bring your entice your kids to eat good fruit. So usually if I have like a lot of fruit, I'll do 3 different things. I will dehydrate some of it. I will freeze some of it. I mean, of course, I'll eat it fresh too. And then I will ferment some of it. I'll make some alcohol out of it. A little mead maybe, or a little wine out of it. Hard cider if it's apples. It's so, so, so easy to make your own alcohol. You don't have to even buy it. All right, so yeah, oranges you can do. Like when I eat oranges, as long as they're organic, or lemons, I slice the peels and I throw them in. And then you just grind it into a powder, and you've got your own vitamin C. You don't have to buy that if you like it. And these were the, kale chips. Have you all had stuff like that? Those are so easy. You just cut them into the pieces you want. They will shrink from the time they're wet to the time they're dry. So make sure you get a piece big enough to actually grab and put in your mouth. But one of my favorites is coconut bacon, and I actually do that with those young Thai coconuts. Have you seen those in the stores where they're wrapped in plastic in the produce section? They're
called green coconuts.
Or Thai coconuts or green coconuts, yes. Those are just the young coconuts, and they have a beautiful, beautiful water in them that is so good for you. So you can, punch a little hole and drink that, and then you just cut it off. I have a big cleaver, and I just... And then scoop out, the skin is only, or the meat is only like really, really thin. It's not like a mature coconut. And you just marinate that in a little like soy sauce or Bragg's or salt and whatever you like to use that's salty and has that umami flavor, and then put it in, and you can see it there in the lower right-hand corner. It really is it's a very healthy bacon, because coconut is great for you. You can make, of all the chilies you grow or buy, if you go to the tailgate market. If you all don't go to the tailgate markets, I would really encourage you to start. I mean, instead of going in the winter to your, to the store that has California produce that's been picked and driven all the way here in a truck and flash frozen, you can do your own so easily. To go to the tailgate markets, buy a whole, not just enough to eat, but enough to store away for the winter, which is what I do if I don't have it. If I have a crop failure, or I just didn't get around to growing that, or I didn't think to grow it and somebody else did, I buy in bulk. They always love to see me coming because they know they're gonna cha-ching. Then all winter I'm eating local food, and I'm eating fresh food. All right, so pepper powder, paprika powder, super easy. You would just dry it in here, and then you can use a little coffee grinder if you're doing small amounts, and then you can put it into one of these little jars, and then I'll show you what to do with it to keep it. You can do green powder. If you grow wheatgrass or you juice, you can actually dehydrate that stuff, or you can just take the greens and powder them in a. I have a few machines that I just cannot be without. One is this, and I do love that too. And then I have a K-Tech blender, a high-speed blender, which is just phenomenal for making healthy smoothies and grinding up anything. You could grind coffee in it, you can grind corn in it, dried hard corn or wheat even. It's that strong. But then it makes it super easy. You dry your tomatoes, and you would rather have tomato powder or paprika. You just dry them first, and then you put them in that blender and press high, and you have a beautiful powder that you can then put in these jars.
Could you do lemongrass as well?
Yeah, you can do everything. You can do flowers. I gather flowers all spring. I love flowers in my food, even just as a little sprinkle decoration. These are big, so I'll use these for tea, or I'll chop them up for food. But violets and rose petals, and you can make just a meal in December or January. Feel like, oh, spring is coming. I can taste it. It's really lovely. Yes.
What is paprika?
Paprika is a type of pepper. It's usually Hungarian paprika, and it's just because that I call it sweet heat. It's really sweet, but it's got a little kick to it that just sort of warms your whole body.
Can you grow those kind of peppers? And they're called Hungarian peppers?
There are paprika peppers. In fact, I have several rows of them in my garden. If we ever get rain, I'll actually get some.
We were having rain in the barn, and it stopped.
Yeah.
Halfway here.
Yeah, it's a difficult time for us right now. All right, so there it is. You can get it in white, you can get it in black, you can get it in stainless steel. Any questions about dehydrating? Yes.
Once you put it in a jar, you don't have to put anything else in it, and it'll last?
Yeah, because we're going to use the vacuum sealer, and I'm going to show you how to do that. And that is what makes, I think I bought these almonds in 2011, and that's young. So 5 years is nothing. I did just recently open something that was 2007, 2009, and it was perfect. It was, if I hadn't had the date, I wouldn't have known if it was the stuff I put away last year or 8 years ago.
We have one of those pump vacuum pumps.
Yeah, we'll talk about that when we get to that, okay? Because there are lots of different options. that's the one I love, so that's what I'm going to tell you about. All right, anything else about dehydration? Do you feel like you could do that? You feel empowered? It's delicious. Okay, so I was saying zucchini. I'll do this with all my zucchini, and in winter I'll throw it in soups, and people will go, "Where'd you get zucchini?" It's January. How are you eating zucchini? It's really, really delicious.
Most ovens don't go down real low. I happen to hold on to my electric oven because it does go down to like 100.
Yeah.
If you get it too high.
The other thing is that you have to be really careful of. I was saying that I did try a solar dehydrator.
Yeah.
You have to have the right amount of heat. You don't want too much, or you're going to change the product. But you want to have good airflow, and ovens don't have that unless it's a convection, and then it's probably going to go so fast that it might go over.
It's not safe, I guess.
I use my oven for some things, and I just use the pilot. I don't ever turn it on. I've got a bunch of passiflora, passion flower leaves, which is a fabulous tea to be able to sleep. And it comes up wild all through my garden because we grew it once and that's all it needs. And then it goes forever. But instead of calling it a horrible weed, it's like one of my best friends. I'm like, oh, great. And as it gets really leafy and flowery, I harvest a good amount of it and I just pop the whole thing in my oven. You could hang it to dry. it's just like, where's the ladder? Where's the rope? There's the oven. And that's where mine went. But this is for small sliced things. If you have big leafy things, really, it's not the best. It's not the best thing. I'll put some in, like when the nettles first come out. I love nettles, and I love to dehydrate them for tea and for infusions. So I will do that in the spring because I've got nothing else going on, and I'm just doing small amounts when it first comes up and it's really small. I'm like cutting, grow. So, but then once it takes off and I've got 4-foot nettles, I don't use this anymore. Any other questions? Do you want to hear it so you know what it sounds like? What did I do with the lid? It is loud. If you're in a small room, it could be irritating. My husband hates it. He tries to hide it, and then I have to find it under the porch and bring it back up. But if you have a back room, it can make a really small back room a little warmer and toastier if you have a room you're not using. But if it's in your main kitchen, it takes up a lot of space and it's a little loud and it puts out a little heat, not a lot, but. So now you know.
Can you use parchment paper as a substitute for the Techlex?
I think you can, but parchment paper does tend to curl up. So as long as you have stuff all over it, I think that would be just fine. Yeah.
Can you mix, do you have shelves of sweet fruit and vegetables, or will
You really can. You really can. I mean, if you've got it on this and it's runny, no. But if you're doing it on the mesh, yeah, you can mix and match. I'm always surprised what I find when I open mine up. Oh, flowers. So yes. Okay, so that's a dehydration.
Is there a good source to go to this web for recipes?
I'm a terrible one to ask about recipes. I mean, it was excruciating for me to put recipes on here. I actually had to try to measure. I just eyeball everything.
There's a really good book called Dry It, You Might Like It. And it's really old, and it's like all handwritten, kind of. It's yellow. Look for it online because it has amazing recipes for all things dehydrated.
I think there are a lot of sources now. Lots more books have come out. But that's what your fruit leathers will look like. And you can also do like little flatbreads and things in this. It's pretty amazing. I mean, you couldn't use things with regular flour, but if you're gluten-free and you wanted to do some bread out of seeds and nuts and some other things, this is a great way to go. Okay, the next one is freezing. Freezing is super easy. The big difference for me from freezing now as to freezing versus freezing 35 years ago, I just told you how old I am, is the freezers now are super cold. And so I think that the old, USDA guidelines, and you have to dip everything in water and blanch it, and I still think that does produce a better product for some things, but I think for a lot of things you just don't need to do that. And I'm not an expert on safety issues, but I've been eating this way for a long time and I have never gotten sick from any of it. So that's all I can promise you. If you're not going to follow the blanching. And what blanching does is it stops the enzyme process, which means it kills the enzymes, which means it doesn't have the enzymes that I personally want to have in my food to make it as fresh as possible. So I like the taste better of some things like, say, tomatoes. That's my freezer. I know I said I hate plastic, but what I hate even worse is I hate having to freeze everything laid out on trays so that it doesn't stick together and then put it in a glass jar, because that takes an extra day and a whole lot of freezer space for me. If you freeze something directly in a jar, you have to wait for it to thaw. And I just don't ever, I'm not a great planner. I try to be, but I'm not. So you could freeze everything that we're doing, you could freeze in jars, as long as you're a good organizer and you know that that's what you're going to have tomorrow and you have time to take it out. So this is my one concession to plastic. I do freeze a lot of things in plastic, and I'm sorry for that. But okay, tomatillos. Tomatoes, when I freeze tomatoes, I didn't bring any of those, but I take a bag and I just come in from the garden and I've got all the tomatoes, and I'm like, what am I going to do with this? And I grab the bags. If the tomatoes are absolutely clean and I know what plant they came off of and I picked them and there's no dirt on them, I'll just take off the green stem and throw them in the bag. That's it. That's all I do. If they're not clean or I bought them from someone, I'll wash them first and wait for them to dry off, and then I'll throw them in the bag. So those are the tomatoes in the middle there. I try to, if I have different kinds of varieties, like I grow about 50 different heirloom varieties, I'll just grab a few of each and throw them in so that the sauce or whatever I'm making when I take it out is going to be really interesting and more complex flavor. And then I don't have to do a designated day for making tomato sauce. I don't have to do the machine that splashes all over me. I do have one of those. And that always wants to hurt the countertop and all of that stuff. And to me, the finished product, so here's how I do a tomato sauce. We're going to have spaghetti, or we're going to have eggplant, or we're going to have whatever, and all I have is frozen tomatoes, not fresh. So I bring up a bag and I smash it on the butcher block, and then, if it's sticking together, if it was wet, it won't be much. You can reach in and just break it off, but I just give it a little smash, and my dogs kind of jump, and then I'll just dump it all in a really big pan and turn up the flames really high, and those frozen tomatoes start to just sizzle. And is your mouth watering just talking about it? And then what will happen is I have a photo. So that's my end product. The middle is what happens when you cook them really high. They get in water. If you're going to do something like, say, make anything that needs a lot of moisture, and you're going to, for some reason, you want to cook it for a long time, or if that's your style, if you like it cooked a long time, then leave the water in there, and they'll just disintegrate. I tend to be in a hurry and just pour the water out quickly, put a cover on, go to the sink, pour it out, and my sauce is ready within 10 minutes. And I just add a bunch of stuff to it. Then I just chop up, garlic and onions, and if I've got some greens, I try to sneak those in everywhere I can. So I'll throw some kale or spinach or any peppers, whatever I've got, and then all the spices. And it ends up looking like that, and everybody who comes to dinner says, in the middle of winter, says, how in the world did you make this? I really cannot tell a difference from the tomato sauce I make from the fresh tomatoes in summer out of the garden to this. It's the same thing. That freezing really preserves it. Okay, so to go backwards, these are the type of freezers that I have. I have the chest freezers. When you open them, the cold air does not fall out. When you have the door freezers, it does fall out. And I don't know, I should knock on wood before I say this. I've had 3 of these that have never gone out, and every single, same brand, really good quality, high energy efficiency, stand-up one, something goes wrong with them. I don't think they are built as well, I'm not sure. But these guys seem to be happy. They just sit there cold and frozen, and you just have to organize it well so tomatoes are here. If you throw it all in, you're going to have a miserable mess and you'll never use it. So do take the time to organize it so you know where everything is. We go to the tailgate market in North Asheville and we buy, when fruit comes, I just say, how much do you have? And she'll say, well, I have 2 flats. I'll go, how much can I have? Because I don't want to buy everybody else up, but I am feeling a little selfish, like say all of it. And she'll go, yeah, you can have it. So I'll bring those home and I'll immediately freeze them, or I'll make some mead or something out of it, or I'll dehydrate them depending on what fruit it is and depending on my time. This is the fastest. If I have no time, they'll go into the freezer. And then all winter we're making smoothies and ice cream out of the frozen fruit, or even frozen fruit in yogurt in the morning is fabulous. If it's just, you almost feel like you're getting ice cream because it's kind of frozen-y and it's melting, and it's not like the frozen fruit you buy. It's much, much, much better.
How do you recirculate in a chest freezer?
What?
How do you recirculate your stuff?
Well, that's when you have to get your significant other or a good friend or somebody who owes you something to come over and say, I've got this load of blueberries to put in. We need to pull these out. And so we just did that with ours because we got some more and we still had some left. Hopefully you eat it all by the time the next blueberry season comes around. That's your goal, is to get enough with produce. I try to eat it in a year. So, because it really does start to go downhill after that.
Do you make like a log of everything that you put up?
I wish. I so wish that. I mean, I love my husband. I don't want a different husband, but I wish he was like that, so he would make up for my deficiencies. He's not like that either, but yeah.
What brand?
Somebody name some brands and tell me. It's not Kenmore, although I think those are good. Yeah, I think it's a Frigidaire. Yeah. If you really care about the brand, like if you're going to buy one, call me and I'll run down and look and tell you what it is. Okay, so the one thing that you want to do, if you're not going to use it quickly, like quickly for me is within 3 or 4 months. If you know it's going to be there close to a year, what you want to do when you get it in those bags is try to suck as much air out of it as you can. And the really easiest way to do it is to use a straw. I usually don't have a straw, and I've usually got my face to the bag and I'm sucking in it. But if you have a straw, it's really easy. We can also use this machine to do it. It does it automatically if you want to use their product, so I'll show you how that goes as well.
So would you just take like your beans that I just picked? And
Okay, so
they're sitting in my fridge.
beans you can do different things with. You can salt them, or you can pickle them. You could freeze them. We eat, for green beans, I probably would dunk them. I dunk peas, really, 1 minute in boiling water. You know, I get a big thing and we pour it in, and we have a big thing in the sink that's full of ice water. Yeah, and like 1 minute, and it's not that hard. But beans and peas, things that will get starchy, those are the things I do like to blanch. Greens, it's a good idea to blanch those really quickly. You know, I'll do spinach, I'll do nettles, I'll do, do you all eat purslane? Do you know about purslane? Yeah. Purslane is this weed in your garden. I'm off subject, but I'll talk really fast. It is the most nutritious vegetable on the planet. It is in every single continent. It is in everybody's garden, and most of them are spraying or ripping it out, and it is an amazing vegetable. So if you don't know it, look it up and try to identify it. It's really, really delicious. So I do that too with purslane.
Purslane, do you blanch it, you said?
I do,
Okay.
yeah.
Can you spell that?
Purslane. It looks like little rubbery leaves. It's a succulent.
It's not slimy? You take it?
Well, it's got that little okra thing. Okra, mallow, purslane are all really, really good for our digestive system. So if you don't have one single problem with your digestive system, wow, I'm impressed.
So can you still make pesto once it's come out of the freezer? Is it the texture's okay?
You know, I guess
Or no, it would be more soup?
you can. Yeah, you can. I just use it in a stir fry, personally. Sorry, that was really bad. I'm sorry, what?
Do you lose any nutrition out of the stuff that you freeze, like nutrients?
You know, I think very little. I've read so many studies, and I'm really, really surprised at how little you do, because it's such a fast process with the modern freezers that we have. You know, obviously it's not as alive as it was when you put it in, but at least you have it. You know, I pretty much eat by the seasons, except for the stuff I do put away. Otherwise, I don't buy that stuff in winter.
Here's a crazy question. What happens if you have, like, I have the little worms that are going to my tomatoes right now? Suppose you had the little cutworms, I think?
Oh, the tomato hornworms?
Yeah, is that what
Those aren't little. You know, like
big.
those ones?
And so what happens if one accidentally gets in there?
Well, you'll have more protein in your tomatoes, and you'll probably never notice. You'll probably never notice. Those are hard to miss. When they freeze, they would curl up into a little ball, and I think you would see them. I mean, you can usually see stuff like
I
that.
have no idea what it is. I just started gardening, so.
Oh, okay. If it's something little, I don't know what that is. The tomato hornworms are
They're
really.
sucking it out, so like I went down there and it was like this sack.
Did you take a photo?
I should have.
Yeah.
I did not, because I'm like.
I'm having a bad year with my harlequin bugs. We've never had them before, and we have them this year. I saw like 2 or 3 last year, and that was the warning, and this year they came. Last year we lost almost all of our beans to Mexican bean beetles. What happened with that is, interestingly enough, there's a beneficial wasp that actually will take over their little larvae. And I think I saw a little of that last year, but didn't know what it was. And then I went to the spring conference and heard that you could order these things like really expensive. And I called to order them. And then I got online and I looked and I said, because I saw the beginning of them 2 weeks ago, and I went, oh. But I looked at them and they looked kind of weird. And so I got online and studied. And we're lucky in the South because we have the beneficial insect that will overwinter here. In the North, they have to order. It's like $200 to call and get these bugs, so they'll eat it. So last year, I gave them so many Mexican bean beetles. They flourished, and this year I have, they're gone. My beans are gorgeous. So it's like these things really do work if we give them time. Just don't run to the sprays. All right, so fruits and vegetables, dry them off, pop them in a freezer container. You can use jars, you can use those plastic things if you want, you can use bags if you want. The last thing I was gonna say is some people say that to cover them with water, and I did try that last year with peas, and I just thought it was awful. They cover them with water, so the idea is there's no oxygen. You wanna exclude the oxygen so that it tastes better, and they just tasted watery, like watery peas. They didn't, so to me, I didn't like that. I'm just telling you, you can try it, but I can't recommend it now. I think we got everything, didn't we? Those are the freezers. Okay, the other thing is juice. We have a ton of apple trees, and we do make hard cider with it, and we also make at least 50 gallons of regular cider every year. Just put it through the press, and you can do this. I mean, if you have a juicer or if you know somebody who has a press, I do. As long as they're organic, you can come use mine. And then you just freeze this stuff. And so my husband loves apple juice or apple cider. He lives on it. And I'm not really a big sweet fruit juicer personally. I like green juices, but we just have a whole half a freezer dedicated to gallons or half gallons. You know, we use those kombucha bottles that you can get or that kind of thing, filled with juice. So you can have, and it does taste so fresh. You cannot believe that it's frozen. It tastes just like you just squoze it. All right, vacuum sealing. So this is the vacuum sealer that I love. There are lots of different options. The Food Saver, I'm a vegetarian, I'll just tell you, I don't know anything about doing meat, but I know people who are hunters who absolutely love this, or who buy a half of a side of a cow from a local farmer and cut it all up, and they do this and they freeze it, and they just rave about how amazing it is. You know, the main thing is when you're buying in bulk, you're paying a lot less than if you're buying at the store. When you buy at the store, it has to go through a truck to a middleman who then sells it to all those stores, and then it goes to their warehouse, and then it comes, you know, it's just not as fresh as if you're getting it freshly, whatever the word is, I'm not gonna say it. But anyway, it's the same thing with vegetables, you know, and everything that you're buying. It is very, very fresh to do it as soon as you grow it, as soon as you pick it, as soon as you buy it. Okay, now that is for fresh things. The other thing that I do is I buy a ton of stuff in bulk. And actually, this is the only thing here I've bought, but the other stuff I grew. But I like to find farmers and buy directly from them if I can. I found, I don't know if you all know about almonds. I love almonds and almond milk. And California went through this weird thing where they had to pasteurize all of their almonds because one large producer of not raw almonds, but regular almonds, got somebody sick, and so then they penalized everybody. So I found a farmer in California. So it's actually illegal for them to sell it most of the time raw. But I found a farmer who grows these almonds organically, and he is allowed to sell them over the internet as long as you don't buy more than 50 pounds a day or something. Well, that was fine. So every fall, after he has his new almond crop, I call him, or he has a website, and I don't remember that. I'm so sorry, but I'm happy to share that information with you if you email me. And so I just order probably 50 pounds. Whatever it is that I've realized, if during the year we ran out and I wanted more, then I know I get more than last year. If we have way more than we need, then I'll get a little less the next year. But so you can buy, there's a place called nuts.com if you guys haven't discovered that. They have become so organic friendly. It's really, really awesome. You can get anything there. I get fresh dates from a date grower in California, and I actually want you guys to taste these. Pass them around and take one for anybody who wants one, because I bet you've never had anything like that in your life. These are Barhi dates, and they are the most delicious. Did I tell you I love delicious food? These are the most delicious food. Unbelievable. No way could you ever buy something like this. It's just not the same quality. These are like sugar candy, melt in your mouth. And he actually has a video. This guy is wild. He's got like dreads down to here, and he does this thing to get up to his trees where it's terrifying to watch because they're like 80 feet up, and he calls it jungle farming or something. And he's in California, you know, but he does it the old way. He doesn't do it with machines, and he grows like 30 different kinds of varieties. At Christmas, you know, I'll get a date variety pack and just put it out on the table, and it's so gorgeous, and everybody can try all the different things. So this is one of the things I buy in bulk. Sometimes I do put dates in jars, and I suck them, I vacuum them. He told me this last year, he said, Kelley, just leave them in it and put them in a bag like that. So I am able to fit 4 of those in each one, and I get cases. This is 10 months old.
It was frozen?
No, this is just refrigerated. But I wanted to point out that some things do great with refrigeration if you know what you're doing. Like dried fruits will last fine. They don't need to be frozen. But when you dehydrate them, or in rare instances when you're able to keep something like that, it's really amazing. So I will buy 50-pound bags or 25-pound bags of grains, of raisins, of dried fruit, of anything that my family eats. Those are peppers that I grow, and I just throw them into here and then dehydrate them. I love to grow all different kinds. Okay, so we're talking 2 things here. In all these methods that I'm showing you, there's the dry goods and there's the wet goods, and you need to be really clear about the difference, okay? Because if you think about it, like canning, those are wet goods. The tomatoes, those are wet goods. So with wet goods, I always put them in the freezer, right? With dry goods, I don't have to. The other thing you can do with wet goods is ferment them, and then you don't have to freeze them, but we haven't gotten there yet. So okay, nuts.com has every candy that you've ever eaten, every cracker you've ever eaten, every grain you've ever eaten, and a million that you haven't, and all kinds of products. You can, if you're addicted to something, you can buy that in bulk, and they'll show you. You have your option of buying 1 pack, 3, 5 pounds, 20 pounds, 100 pounds. And so you can just try 1 pack and see if you like it, and if you love it, you get it, and then you don't ever have to go back. You don't have to go back, and if you use a lot of flour, if you bake, you can either buy the grain and grind it, or you can just buy the fresh flour and do this to it, and then it will still be fresh in a year or 2 years or 3 years with this, which is why I love this machine so much. So I'm going to show you. Okay, so here's something let's open these almonds.
What is the name of that machine?
It's called a Food Saver.
By what brand?
Food Saver.
That is a brand. Oh,
Yeah.
Food Saver brand.
Okay, so this is a nail breaker. I usually put a towel on it. Let's see if I can do it. Okay, so listen. Everybody be quiet for a second and see if you can hear this. Okay, you can hear the vacuum. It's still on it, and this was the one from 2011. So you can see your food. You can periodically go through and look at it and make sure that seal is there. You all know the difference between a up and a down. You can just kind of see it. It's kind of sticking up, and you go, uh-oh, and you press on it, you go, yep, got to redo it and eat this soon. And sometimes they just do. We tend to reuse lids, which you shouldn't ever do, but we do. Okay, so then if I want to seal it up, say I've taken a few nuts and I want to seal it up. I sound like a commercial, don't I? But wait, this is the magic thing. This is the thing that allows you to use the quart jars. You make sure you don't have this on, okay? Just one of these, and you pop it on, and then you pull this thing out and put it in. Okay, and now if I can do this upside down, And you can hear the when you pull this out. Then you just take that off, label it, and put this on. You don't have to, it's like canning, but I do. It just protects it more, not really tight, but just enough that if it does pop up, it's not gonna spill out.
And so you can do that, you can open it and reseal
Yeah,
it again.
yeah, you can open it and reseal it again. If you use, okay, my husband will like use a can opener and that will dent it and then you can't reuse it. So that's why I tend to break my nails on it, use it. It's automatic. That's what's so nice. I have another one that doesn't work. The automatic part doesn't work. My son bought me a new one for my birthday a couple years ago, but I still use the other one too. I just kind of listen and then I turn it off automatically and I can hear the when I pop it, so I know it's done. And if I don't hear that, then I know it, and you can always test it too. It's hard. If you guys want to try it, it's hard to pull off.
So Kelly, that plastic goes with it, the plastic.
Yeah, so if you want to use, let me just see. Oh, okay. If you want to use, where's those little bags? Those ones. If you want to do things in bags for your freezer, it actually comes with this stuff. Okay, so you put the gray bar on, and then you cut it like that. So you cut it off the roll, and then to get it to seal, what you're going to first have to do is seal one side of that, because you've got two open ends. There we go. Okay, you have to like push it in until it grabs it. That was the secret. And then this should go off when it's done. Okay, so that's that. And then when you put something in it,
Put some flowers in.
though it'll actually crush that. But let me open those almonds. Are you still passing those around? I'll put those in so we can see.
I wonder if that's pH-free.
Here's what's really cool. We could do the whole thing if we wanted. Yeah, it is. It is. Definitely. Everybody's demanding that these days. Okay, so I've got it tight, pulled. I stick it in this little thing, and then you just jiggle it until it catches it. You can see it. And then it's sealing itself. So you buy a lot of food like this in the grocery store. They just have a much bigger machine. Come on. And there it is. I mean, yeah, so it's great for freezing as well, if you want.
your machine last? I had a smaller version. It was not.
Well, I've had this for, I'd say, 3 years.
Okay.
I mean, I think, and they've got a good warranty on it. The thing that happened to my other machine is I was doing a flour and I filled it too high and it got into the tube and then it got into the motor. If you really, okay, so this week I made garbanzo beans, or actually last week. I pressure cooked them from dry beans. And then it had all that really cool liquid left over, and I know people are now making meringues out of bean juice, if you haven't heard of that. I haven't done that yet, but anyway. So I just took I couldn't eat all the beans I made. I thought my son was going to eat them, and he didn't. So I took them and I put them in a jar, and then I did do this. And this has a thing that says liquid. It says on-off marinate accessory. So you can marinate things like this. If you put your whatever in it, and you see it on the cooking shows. They're like, I'm going to marinate this into the gastro whatever chemistry thing they do. You put the juices and the marinade and everything in, but then you use the liquid. There's speed, normal, gentle, and gentle is what you'd want to use with the flour, which I didn't do, and then dry and moist. So I put it on moist and I put it on gentle, just so I could watch the level of the liquid. And it did rise. I saw it rising, and then I turned it off and it was sealed and I put it in my refrigerator. I couldn't take that and put it on the pantry shelf because it's a wet good, it's not a dry good, but I can refrigerate it or freeze it or ferment it. But I just, it'll keep 3 to 5 times, 10 times as long. You can do your cheeses. I mean, I know that there's people that use these things and every time they cut a slice off their cheese, they put it back and they say it's good for a year. It just doesn't ever go bad because it's anaerobic, it maintains it. So that's the food saver. Again, really, really clear, dry goods, wet goods. You're not gonna do anything wet in this. peppers, tomatoes, tomato sauce, and put it on the shelf. If you do that, you're going to put it in the freezer, right?
So whenever you dehydrate, that's the final step.
Right. So fresh flowers, and then I dehydrated it, and then I put it in here. And I don't know if you can see, these are a little squished. It'll take some things, and it'll just really, like a marshmallow. It's hysterical to see what it does to a marshmallow. You know, there's no, and then they're not quite ever the same. So you need to be careful what you do. These, they do get down, compressed a little, but that's fine with me because I'm going to use it for tea. Okay, any questions about the food saver? Yes?
Yes, we have a pump, hand pump.
Right, we were going to talk about those. Okay, let's see if I go to the different kinds. All right, so some people buy those automative for cars. What are those things called? It's right down there. It actually, anyway, you can make your own. You don't have to buy this if you're really good with car parts and all that stuff. You just get that at the car parts store, and I can't remember what it's called, but it's a pump. And you use it to do something in an engine. I have no idea what. They have little hand ones. They do have ones that are made specifically for their product. Like, oh, you can use this for any container, but you have to put a hole in it and have this gasket. And I don't know, that just makes me a little nervous having that, something that it can leak out of. I don't know. This is just simple, and it works for me, so I never went further. I've seen really cool hand ones, and is that what you have? And does it work with anything? Like, would it work with this?
For about 10 years on a regular canning jar lid. They give you a little pin.
Right, okay, so that's what I'm talking about.
Like a tiny Band-Aid that covers the hole.
Right.
And you put this little pump, has a little rubber seal on top. You pump that, and you get almost as good a vacuum as you would if you canned it. Hot water canning.
Right, so it's the same kind of vacuum as this, but they tell you the same thing, I'm sure, to separate your dry goods from your wet goods. Yeah. But so the reason I don't like that is I don't want to put a hole in my jar lid. I don't know, I really love the fact that this doesn't need a hole and it totally closes it and it's still intact, and I trust it more. I trust it for 10 years, and I don't know if those rubber gaskets will last as long. Have you tried over the years to see how long they really go, or?
I haven't used it that much, but we haven't had any problem.
Plus you gotta do that, which is really good if you don't have electricity. It's really good to have that option, but yeah. So, and I think they're going to come out with more things as the years go on. So again, anything dried that you can buy, any nuts, any dried fruit, buy or make nuts, dried fruit, flour. Your pantry and shelves also could look like mine.
So flour that you buy in a bag, you know, that's already ground, like to make bread with or whatever.
You can do that. You can do that and not have to go out and buy a new bag of flour whenever you want it. You can have a 5-year supply worth, or at least 6 months worth. You know, I mean, you don't have to buy huge quantities, but you can buy bigger quantities. And it stays so beautifully fresh. If it's fresh when you get it and it's fresh when you put it in, it's going to be fresh when you open it. Make sure that the produce that you use for all of the things that we're talking about today is fresh. If you don't want to eat it when it's fresh, just throw it away or give it to somebody else. It's not going to get any better than when you open it after you've done whatever, if you've put all this energy into it, and it's still not going to taste good. So make sure that it's good food. All right. Okay, any more questions on vacuuming?
I have a fast question. So if you have a wet good that you dehydrate in Excalibur, then it becomes a dry and you can store it in a jar?
Which wet good are you thinking about? Okay, you can store it in a jar. Oh, okay, so you're going to dehydrate it and then you can store it in a jar. If it's been dehydrated, yes. And I recommend keeping them in a cool place. They don't have to be refrigerated, but a cool, dark cupboard. I mean, don't put it in the cupboard next to your stove that creates all the heat. You know, it's just not going to be the same product. Anything lasts better with cool and not sunlight as much as dark. We used to have a wine cellar, and now it's filled with these things. We started making our own alcohol, and we didn't need the impressive wine cellar anymore. Okay, pickling and fermentation. Have you all experimented with, making sauerkraut or kimchi? Well, I know that there's a really great video on your website, Meredith, this website. that goes more into depth about pickling and fermenting. And I don't have time to demonstrate it, but I promise you it's super easy. The things that I pickle are almost everything. Kimchi is simply the Korean version of sauerkraut, but they add hot pepper and they add garlic and onion, and it's so delicious. And it lasts forever. I don't know if you all remember the old MASH series. There was one where they saw a peasant out in the field digging, and there was something there, a big jar, and they thought he was burying a treasure, and they spent the whole episode trying to get the treasure. And it turned out it was his kimchi jar that he kept in the ground because it was cool, and it lasts, much of the winter until the fresh vegetables come in. Just like my ancestors used to make sauerkraut and keep it in their cellar and eat it through the winter to keep their health, because it's not only green vegetable in the winter, it was the fermentation, the lactobacillus is so crucial to our health. I eat as much good, well-fermented foods as I can. A little goes a long way. If you overdo on fermented foods, you can feel stuff in your tummy, because it's a bacteria that aids in your digestion. If you take antibiotics, maybe some of you have experienced afterwards, you really have a lot of stomach problems, intestine problems, because the antibiotics kill off the beneficial bacteria in your gut. So it's something that is really good for us to supplement our diets with as much as we can. So that could be sauerkraut, that could be pickles, that could be hot chilies, that could be hot sauce. I thought I brought chili mash, and now I don't see it. Is it in here? There it is. All right, so Tabasco sauce. Tabasco sauce is fermented. Fermentation is the process that they use, and they put it in big, huge warehouses, in big, huge wooden whiskey barrel type things that are charred on the inside, and then they cover it with a wooden lid, and then they cover the wooden lid with salt. They don't put salt on the hot sauce. They put salt. I mean, they've never said why. First of all, it protects. They say it's a protectant. Salt is. I can imagine if there was anything bad in the air, any bacteria, anything, it would get killed trying to go through the layer of salt. I think they use it like a filter, sort of. A salt filter. It doesn't ever touch the food, but it just keeps it tucked in. And then they say that they ferment it up to 3 years. Well, that was a long time ago, and now it's probably, they can still say they could say up to 50 years and only do it 1 year. But the longer that chili mash goes, the more depth of flavor it will have. So I make it every year. I have a gazillion. I have probably more than we can ever use, and I still keep growing chilies every year because I love them. And then I'll grab one when we run out of these. And I just make these by the dozens. And every time my kids come to visit, they both live in Asheville, and they'll grab a bunch and just say, I'm out of hot sauce, I'm out of hot sauce. I think they drink it. My hot sauce is not usually this orange. What happened with this particular hot sauce that I made 2 weeks ago was that the batch of chili mash that I grabbed was from the chocolate habanero peppers that I grew 3 years ago or 4 years ago. And it was unbearably hot. I mean, I love spice, but I don't want to cry. I want it to be nice and mellow. So the way that you do that when you make your hot sauce is you add a lot of vinegar and carrots and onions and garlic, things to cut it down so that it's not so much. You could also add sweet peppers, but I didn't have any. So you can add anything. You can add mango, you can add pineapple, you can add, read the ingredients in hot sauces nowadays. It's nuts, it's crazy. You can do any of that. And then I just keep this refrigerated all year. This I also keep refrigerated. You don't have to, but try to keep it in a cool place. You can eat it in a couple weeks if you can't wait 3 years. It's still really delicious and it's hot. Okay, so the way that I do that, same thing with chilies. I make a lot of pickles, and I don't make many with vinegar. All right, those are two really different ways to get the pH right. I like vinegar on some things. I make herbal vinegars, so like when we have nettles or purslane or anything, I'll it'll look like pickles. I'll just stuff the whole jar full of nettles or whatever, and then cover it with vinegar. And one really important point is that I use Bragg's apple cider vinegar. There's one at the co-op that it says apple cider vinegar, and I went, oh my gosh, it's so much cheaper, and I got it home and I saw it was pasteurized. You don't want pasteurized, you want to use a live vinegar. They actually make the vinegar in big barrels with a mother, sort of like kombucha. It's a little colony, and it's the way that vinegar was always made traditionally until we came up with our new and improved methods. So in that vinegar is a live product, and so you still get health benefits. Vinegar is a little strong for me, so I don't eat a lot of it. But the chili mash, all of these things that are fermented, you use salt to ferment. The salt and water, or the water in the plant, is what creates the or allows the lactobacillus to grow and flourish. So the old-fashioned pickles that you used to get when you were a kid, if you haven't had any lactic acid pickles lately, the ones that were in the big pickle jar in the stores, those were lactic acid pickles. And that's what we eat. And I have a ton of them, and I'm so spoiled because I can have really good pickles whenever I want. And then there's vinegar pickles, and I do make some freezer pickles that are really, really easy, and they're delicious, and I put those on your papers as well. So you can pickle anything besides, it doesn't have to be cucumbers. It can be green beans, it can be beets, it can be cabbage, it can be, all of these things. The same way that you make pickles is very, very similar to how you make sauerkraut. The main difference being you're either adding the salt directly to the vegetable, if it's a really watery vegetable, which is kimchi, sauerkraut, even beets and carrots, and it pulls the moisture out, and that creates your brine. If you're making something like pickles where you don't want that to get soggy, you want to keep it crisp and whole, you just make your brine up, which is the salt in the water, you pour that over, and it won't pull any more moisture out of the pickle, so it'll stay whole. And
is kosher salt the same as pickling salt?
It is. The main thing is, I usually use Celtic salt. I buy that I have jars of that in my basement too. So I just grab that. But a big granular salt, and you want to make sure that it doesn't have the iodine added, because that will interfere with the process.
Sea salt? Celtic sea salt?
Sea salt, yeah. So let me just see. Okay, so to do the pickles, you've got a recipe. I have a standard brine, and I know that I've seen scientific things where for this vegetable you use a brine of this percentage. I use the same brine for everything, and it works great for me. I use 3 tablespoons of salt to 1 quart of water. So if I bring a bunch of pickles up, or a bunch of peppers, and I want a bunch of cucumbers or peppers, and I want to pickle them, instead of doing pickling day where you have a whole thing, if you're getting it out of your garden, you can do it a jar at a time. Whenever you can fill a jar, you can do another, jar of pickles, and you just keep putting them away, and by the end of the season, you're like, how did I get so many? It's really lovely. So I'll make, for pickles, I'll just mix in the 3 tablespoons of salt to a quart of water, and then I'll stuff my jar. On the bottom, I'll put all my spices. And your spices can be anything. Cloves and bay leaves and cinnamon and garlic and whatever. I mean, you can find a gazillion recipes for pickles, and they all use different spices. If you like them really sweet, you add those kind of spices, like the cinnamon and the cloves. If you like them just really savory, you can skip that. And then I'll put a couple cloves of garlic in the bottom, and I'll stuff, and maybe some chili peppers, some dried chili peppers. And then I'll stuff it full of whatever, and then I'll pour the brine over it. And I'll do that fermentation in this Fido jar. I don't do that in these because these have metal lids, and it can react, and I'll forget. If you remember, if this is what you have, and you remember after it'll usually reach a stage where it fizzes over. You'll come and it'll be all over your countertop. If it's beets and you have a white countertop, you'll see it. And then if you take it off and wipe everything and rinse off the lid, you're fine. Because it only bubbles up that once. It doesn't continually do it. It just reaches this point where it's just, and it's overjoyed and it overflows. And when you open the lid, it's going to go, the breath of life, It's going to be really happy to hear that. And then and then you can close it again. For pickles and kimchi, the main thing is taste it. I mean, after you see the big fermentation and you open the jar, and if I do it in this, well, let's see if this, okay, let's listen and see if this does it. I drove it in the car, so I don't know. I could feel it. I don't know if you heard it, but it was the escape of air. That's called burping it, and to burp it, I'll usually just go and just let some of that gas escape, and then close it again, and then I just will put it in a cool place. The longer that you let it ferment in a warm place, the sourer it will get, the more sour it will get. So if you like your pickles really sour, let them cook. Let them ferment, let them ferment, let them ferment. If you like them mildly sour, what I do is if I know that my pickles are going to go all winter, like I'm making 50 jars of pickles, so I'll let them ferment maybe 2 to 3 days max. I wouldn't really eat it at that point, but I put it in the fridge, and then by the time I do eat it in 5 months, it's perfect. You know, it ferments slower in cool places, much faster in warm places. So kimchi is, you know, my difference between kimchi and kraut is that, and pickles, kimchi and kraut and then pickles, is that pickles always have a brine poured over them. And kimchi and krauts, you do not pour brine, you just put salt directly. Yes?
Question about pickles.
Okay.
Real quickly. I never fermented, so I tried to do it in a crock. And when I opened it up on day 5, it was like a cauldron. It was white and bubbling and didn't look really good.
So did it have like a white scum on
I
top?
had white scum, but it was
Yeah.
also bubbling.
Okay, so the bubbling is good.
I
The bubbling is
forgot
not,
about that.
no, the bubbling, that's the fermentation.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, that's the fermentation. That's what beer makers are after. They also ferment and they're waiting for the bubbles, and kombucha makers are waiting for the bubbles. So it's the same with any lactic acid fermentation. You will get bubbles. But the thing is, if it's really, really cooking, it means it's probably a little warm there for it.
Yeah.
I think the quality is not quite so good, and definitely the keeping power to put it away, it's going to start getting soft and really sour faster.
Well, how could you tell? Because I was reading, it was like, because I put it out on Facebook, they were like, no, don't eat that, because mold.
Okay, so the white scum is very typical in pickle making, and that's not a dangerous scum. When it starts turning other colors, I tend to dump it. But white, I just take off the white scum and then add a little more salt.
Okay.
If you add too much salt to your pickles or your fermentations, it will inhibit the bacterial action.
If I had, you know, on the weights, I had peppers float up to the top. Does everything have to be under?
You want everything to be under. And the way that I do that is when I do a jar of pickles, do you guys have wild grape leaves or horseradish leaves or even oak leaves? Just bring them in and wash them off, and then I mold them. I mean, they make things that you can buy that are glass things, and they're really expensive. And I mean, when I found them, I said, oh, great. And then I saw the price and I went, never mind. I have way too many. If you're going to do 3 jars of pickles, you can afford the glass things. But if you're going to do 50, you can't. So you just put everything in, make sure that the brine covers it. And then I take the leaf, and if they're small, I overlap them, so I've got a nice covering, and I tuck them in all around until that's totally keeping them under. And the grape leaf I'm not going to eat, although you could, but it's not going to get hurt by being partially in the air.
Can you use sunflower leaves?
A what?
Sunflower leaves, how big they are?
Well, you want to make sure the reason that you use the things I'm saying is they're tannic. And tannic will keep them crisp. So you're like doing 2 things at once. You're keeping the air out and you're getting the crispness. I guess you could use another leaf, but I've never done that because it's not beneficial. And so every living plant, every living fruit, every living everything already has enzymes in it. You do not need to add anything to these things. And don't believe what you read. And here I'm telling you what to do. Don't believe what you hear either. But I mean, when you add things like whey, that's a totally different bacteria. That's a bacteria that eats milk proteins, and it's not, I mean, if you've heard of that, you add whey to your pickles, and it gives it a weird taste, and it's not, I don't think it's as beneficial. Let the plant shine. Let it showcase and show you what it can do. It already has what it needs to create that thing if you create the right salt to plant ratio, yes.
Well, have you ever seen it, it's also the screw-on lids, it's the bear's box, and it doesn't let the oxygen in?
So it has the little thing with it. I've played around with that too. You know, it all comes down to me is ease. I did an experiment. I mean, I love experiments. So I did a scientific experiment. I think they're called picklets or something like that. I did it with that. I did it with these. I hated those because they'd get knocked off when I put them in my refrigerator, and they were just weird. They were weird. They were then too tall, and this works so easy. It works so easy. You can get these at what's that store in Biltmore that sells glassware and kitchen stuff? What is it? It's not that one, but it's FIDO, and they have these rubber things. This is the cleanest glass in the world. You know, if you really care about all that stuff and you're really, really careful, they actually coat jars now. It's almost impossible to get clean glass anymore in the world, but these are really, really clean. They're from Italy. They're more expensive, but it's a lifetime investment. You will have them forever. You can use them for everything. Hide them from your husband so he doesn't put all of his nails and screws in them.
Question about the veggies.
What is it?
Kitchen and company.
They might have them too. There's a Crate and Barrel, I think, has it too.
With the veggies for the kimchi, if you've got something that's like starting, like my beets, I've got a couple of beets that are like, you know, either pitch them or not. Like, can you put that in a kimchi, or it should be?
You can, as long as they're not rotting. If they're just soft,
yeah, just a little soft.
If they're soft, you can, but you're going to need to add some brine because there's not enough moisture in there anymore.
Okay.
You know, when you so kimchi and sauerkraut, the two words we can use them interchangeably. Kimchi being usually a Chinese cabbage, really watery. You can use bok choy as well. I love kimchi. I've actually been making it for over 30 years. I met somebody in a place I worked who was from Korea, and she showed me years ago how to do it. So I absolutely adore it. It's really, really easy, and I have a photo of how to do it. Let's see. Oh, did I already go past it? Where is it? Oh, there it is. This is my photo. I didn't even recognize it. It's so good. So that's my butcher block, looking down on it. So the way that I make kimchi or sauerkraut is I will take the vegetable that I'm going to use. I will take the garlic. I will take the hot peppers, the powder or the mash. I have mash there because that's what I have, but you can use hot peppers powder. The secret is, you know how the kimchi you buy is really, really red? You get it in Asian stores, and it's really, really red. And I look at that and I go, come on, I've grown a gazillion type of hot peppers, and if you put that much in, nobody can eat it. Well, they also use sweet pepper powder. That's the secret. They use both according to taste, so that it's not this really, really hot cayenne or whatever. And then I do garlic and my garlic press and my green onions, and then I'll go, and ginger. I usually put ginger in too because it's a lovely addition, and turmeric. I also put that in if I have some fresh turmeric. It's a good addition to get that into your diet because it's so good for you. And so then I'll do it all, grate the ginger, I'll chop the cabbage. The cabbage is in a big head, and I slice it like this in pieces about that big, all the way up. And then, I know what, I forgot to bring my masher. So I have everything ready, and then I just start, it takes 3 minutes, literally. You have everything ready, and you just start layering in the jar. And you put down like maybe this much cabbage, because they're in big pieces, and then you start tamping it with the wooden plunger. And, I sit there and go, and it like takes a while, and my husband walks by and just goes, and it's done. And I'm like, how did you do that? 'Cause I can't get it to do that for me. But you can do little taps, or you can do a big press. But you want to start seeing liquid coming out. So you just compress it, and at first you won't. You compress it as much as you can. You put on salt, and you put on I grab a pinchful of everything. I grab salt, I grab the pepper, and then I do a clove of garlic, and I do a little green onion, a little ginger, and then I go to the next layer, and I put in, a bunch. And so those 3 cabbages filled this. Okay, you can fill an amazing amount of cabbages in a jar.
Is that a half gallon?
I don't even know. I bet it says on the bottom. Can you see? Yeah. I don't know. I think maybe this is like 1.5 quarts or something. Oh, see the air escaping when I did that?
Oh, yeah.
So I'll keep doing it and keep doing it, and then the salt will start drawing the water out. And it's just really cool because you'll walk away and you'll walk back in a half hour or an hour, and it'll be like in a brine. and like, wow, it really does work. And so then you keep adding more and you keep adding more and you keep adding more until you stuff all 3 of those cabbages into your jar. You really will be able to do it. It's amazing. And then you just close it off and put it in I put it in a little dark place in the corner of my kitchen where I won't forget it, like the little appliance garage.
That's what, you don't put the lids on real tight.
Well, it depends on your personality, okay? If you're going to remember that you did this, it's okay. I mean, you don't need to put the lids on really tight, but I check mine every day. I just check it. I come back the next morning, I do that, and the next morning I'm checking it and seeing if it's burping yet and seeing if it looks good. And within 2 days, you can start to see the bubbles and it's really starting to look more like kimchi. Okay, so here's the secret about homemade kimchi. On day 3, that's when I refrigerate it. Once I can tell it has started fermenting, that is like, you cannot buy that. That's fresh kimchi. This is what most Koreans prefer, and you cannot find it in stores because by the time it gets to the store, it's by day 5 or 7 or 9, and it's starting to get sour and it's starting to get delicious, but it's mature kimchi. If you get it refrigerated early for a whole week, you can have fresh kimchi, which is just barely fermented, and you still get, it still tastes like a cabbage, but yet it's amazing. That's why I really encourage you to make your own because it's really, really delicious and it's such a treat. I know, because you don't want it to explode. Yeah, well,
it messes up the bacon.
Yeah, you do have to be careful with fermentation. I have had kombucha bottles explode on me, and luckily I was not around. And I was traveling once, and I had the kind that you buy from the store, and it exploded in the middle of the night in the hotel room, because I guess the heat and the shaking in the car. And, so you do need to be careful with glass and fermentation, but always use really, really strong jars. So we make a thing called, which isn't really a kimchi, but we call it beet kimchi or beaten carrot. When I have a lot of beaten carrots or see really beautiful ones in the market, I'll just come home and grate it through the food processor. You don't need to sit there and do that if you don't have the time to do it. There's a really great little disc on the food processor that you put it through, it grates it, it's done, it's magic. And then you start doing the same thing. If you want, you can just do salt and the vegetable. If you like, for sauerkraut, I think they would put in maybe, what is the stuff that makes gin? Maybe a few juniper berries and some caraway seeds or something, but mostly it was just salt and the vegetable. And if you put in garlic or onions, that's what makes it more of the kimchi type pungency. But so I'll do it with beets and carrots, and then those are a little drier vegetables. Unless they're really fresh and young, I usually have to come back the next day and top it off with a little bit of brine. But you all know how to make brine now, so that's not a problem for you.
Kelley, could I ask, when you're doing the kimchi, how much, just a pinch of salt on each layer?
It's more than a pinch. And I know that you can find recipes that tell. I actually have a bowl or a jar full, and I grab a good amount. It's probably like a half a teaspoon for every layer. If you start getting that white, you haven't put in enough salt. If you put in too much salt, the bacteria won't be able to grow. So I tend to err on the side of a little too much because I don't like having to clean it off and add more salt. But
so the white scum is from the salt fermentation?
No, the white is from bacteria because it's not salty enough.
Oh, not salty enough.
Yeah, so it's not a pinch. It's a good amount. It's a good amount. Yeah. Okay, and I wanted to. Any other questions on fermentation before I go into this?
You said that when that happens on your pickles, you just take the scum off and add a little bit more salt. But if you add too much salt, what happens?
Well, I mean, just don't add too much salt. Probably another half a teaspoon or a good pinch is not going to do it. And then if it keeps on doing it, add some more. And if you add too much, then you taste the brine and it's really salty. If you do this, you'll get used to what brine should taste like. If it's too salty, just add more water. Yeah. Okay. Refrigeration. Who here has enough refrigeration space in their home? Right. Okay. CoolBot is like amazing. It's so wonderful. There is a company called CoolBot. I think I tell you on here somewhere how to do it. You use a high efficiency air conditioner. the size will be according to the room you want. You could make a closet, a very small closet, into a refrigerator. You could make in your garage or even outside in a shed, you could make a walk-in cooler with an air conditioner and this little thing called a CoolBot. It adjusts it. What it does is you have to rewire it. It's not that difficult. They have really clear instructions, plus my husband has done it, so you can always call and talk to him. But we found a place in our basement, and we built this room. Super insulated. You know, you just have to go to Lowe's and get all the stuff that they sell that super insulates everything. I have the directions at home. You can find them online. The company gives them to you. But just so you know, you are not stuck having to buy huge, expensive air conditioners. This thing was maybe, I mean, definitely less than $500 with all the materials and the air conditioner. And, you know, and you have the air conditioner if you decide not to use it during the winter, you could just turn it off. But the problem with our area and root cellars, at least for me, even digging something into the north side of a hill, it's just not cool enough. I mean, I like my produce, I like my pickles, I like everything really good all year round. I don't want to eat lower quality things as the year progresses because I didn't have a cool enough room to put it in when I harvested it in July. So I can come from my gardens, you know, with a big bucket of whatever. If I don't have time to process it that day, I can throw it in that. All of my pickles, all of my kimchi, everything I do that I want to refrigerate, my hot sauce, it all goes in there. And I have this, I can even put seeds in there if I get something from Johnny's, like a cover crop, and I'm not going to plant it for a month. I can throw it in the CoolBot, and, you know, the insects. Potatoes are funny because I can't remember exactly what the temperature is, but if you make them too cool, they'll get really sweet. Their starches will turn to sugars. So they'll still be quite edible, but they'll be a little odd. Well, I tend to leave them in the ground as long as I can. You know, after years of digging them up and trying everything else. I haven't buried the refrigerator in the ground, but I just have nightmares of images of myself falling in it and not being discovered for 3 days. So I don't want to do the refrigerator in the ground, but so I leave them in until I'm ready to deal with them. And then they do really well in paper bags in my garage. Or in the ground and dig them up, unless we have a really wet season, in which case they'll start to get eaten by worms and rot. But, you know, my potatoes self-sow every year, and it's funny because we always, you know, every year we rotate crops to a different garden. But I've got potatoes growing in every single garden, and they're delicious and they're fabulous, and they've never gotten a disease. So we always get more potatoes than we needed to because of the volunteers, and I pull out a lot, but I can't.
So in your cool room, what is the temperature? And in the refrigerator, you're looking at 40.
I think we set this about 38. Okay, so, and you know, think about it as far as energy. It's only a little tiny room you're trying. It's not like your an air conditioning in a big room that just keeps running forever. It's in a little tiny room. It goes on for 2 or 3 minutes, and then it's off for hours. And maybe if you open the door, it'll come back on. But it's just talking about it. I'm so hot right now. You guys probably are too. I can feel what it feels like to walk in there, and it's so amazing. And I highly recommend to anybody that has, you know, is in a place where you're going to stay, and you have a shed or the back of your house, you can build a little lean-to or anything. But to have that extra refrigerator space, it's such freedom to be able to store things for so long. Yeah. All right. Any questions about anything today?
As a prepper, what do you do when you don't have electricity?
Well, okay. I have thought about this. I do have a generator for those freezers. Usually if the power goes out, it's going to be in the middle of the winter, and then I just open the garage door. It'll be colder out there than it is in here. But I do have a generator that I can run them on, just a portable one. I don't have a whole house generator or anything like that. And, I've thought about what would I do if I was faced with all of this stuff going bad, something long happened, that it was going to be, I could tell it was going to be a week. If it was going to be more than 2 or 3 days, and it was stuff that I really wanted, I would probably take it out and can it. It wouldn't be the same quality as if I had canned it in the beginning, but it would be preserved, and I would still be able to live and eat.
What is preserved lemons?
Okay, so that was the one thing I was going to say. These are not fermented, but they're salted, and that's the other option that you can do. Is these were when I went into the co-op one day in the winter, and they had beautiful Meyer lemons. They were just perfect, and so I just brought them home and did you cut them and you throw them in, and you put salt all through. You cut them in quarters and you stuff them with salt, and then you cover them with salt, and they're very, very salty. In most recipes, they just use the rind. They take off the other stuff, and I love to use everything, so I just rinse it really well, or I don't put any salt in the recipe that I'm using, and that will be the salt. When you do, I was talking about making vinegars. If you're doing like purslane or nettles or something wonderful in vinegars that you're trying to get for an herbal vinegar, and you're not going to keep it as a pickle, I take, like today, in fact, I emptied my purslane vinegar, and it's a beautiful vinegar, and I'll use that in our salad dressings. But I can't bear to throw away the purslane because it's such a valuable crop. And I just put it in the food processor and whirred it up into a little mush. And I put it in, where is it? Ice cube trays. These things are amazing. You can put everything in here. You can juice and put it in here if you get something and you need it frozen and you just need a little bit. Like I juiced turmeric. I just got 50 pounds of it. I walked into it. It was a really amazing gift from somebody, a big bag of turmeric roots. So I started juicing it, and I've got bags and bags of these frozen ice cubes that I can throw into anything, and you could do that with anything. But so I took the purslane and it looks like pesto. It's just the plant, and it's got this lovely vinegar taste to it instead of throwing it out. And now I've got all these purslane ice cubes that I will throw into salad dressings, and nobody will ever notice except me because I love it. But it'll give you so much extra nutrition. Yes?
2 comments. One is, it's now gone because we didn't maintain it, but we went away and left our garden in the charge of somebody else, and we taught them about purslane, and they looked up Yale Gibbons and learned to make purslane stem pickles. And they bred the purslane for fatter and fatter stems. And by the time we got back, they had these incredibly fat purslane stems.
Yeah, you can do that. I've read that there's more oxalic acid in the stems, so I kind of I don't know that I would do that. I guess if it's really, really, really sour, it's got more oxalic acid, just make sure you drink a lot of water, because those can form crystals, and they say maybe kidney stones, but spinach has oxalic acid, and it's not, every plant in the world has some form of defense. Imagine the old herds that would come through, and they would, there's a beautiful apple orchard. Well, they would annihilate it. They would eat every single apple, and nothing would ever, and they'd eat the trees. Well, the trees and the fruit, the seeds, all have, is it cyanide in it? A little bit. So, and their instincts were so good that they'd eat enough, and then it just didn't appeal to them. They were like, I don't really want any more. And they'd go move on, and they'd eat something else. So every plant, I keep reading, oh, you shouldn't have comfrey, it's got this. You shouldn't have this, it's got this. And I was like, every plant has a natural defense. But the secret is you don't live on that. You eat a little of this, you eat a little of this, you rotate your diet. And I think that in addition to those little things that they have of that, which may be beneficial to us in, stemming cancer cells, keeping things down, they have a lot of other nutrients in them that are really amazing for us. So I think they're good.
And then the other comment is on the question of potatoes in the ground. The property we moved on to had a hole in the ground. Just there, one of those holes, somebody was doing something, left it behind.
Right.
And I started doing it with Jerusalem artichokes, because they're just not good, in my mind, if they sit in the fridge. There's something about being in the ground. And I was able to just put them in plastic buckets.
You know what, I was just going to say, that's what I didn't do with my potatoes last year, but I do it with every other root crop, and I already made a note to myself to do it with potatoes. So do you do it like in your garage, or is it outside?
I do it outside in this hole, and I just pile leaves.
Well, I do.
Leaves on top, they don't.
But then you have to, see, I'm lazy, I don't want to have to undig it. And
I leave the handle sticking up, I pull the handle out, boom, the leaves are still there. You drop it down, I throw some more leaves on top.
Okay, so it's just to cover that. Well, so in my garage, I keep yacon, I keep sweet potatoes in big buckets with soil and sand. And then I just dig those out. So it's not in a freezing place. I don't have to go outside when it's raining and dark and miserable, when it's February. But keeping them in the soil, which is what I'm going to do with potatoes this year, they seem to be like in their hibernation state. as long as they're cool enough. I wouldn't refrigerate them, but my garage doesn't freeze, but it doesn't get warm either in the winter.
Just like a layer of potatoes and a layer of soil, like that?
Yeah. So it's, and then,
If you start that now, you mean, or you're saying?
well, it's not cool in my garage right now. That's why I'm leaving them in the ground right now. When do you wait till the fall?
Sometime October.
Yeah.
And
That's,
to me, I think it's something about the plant responding to that fluctuation of weather that just keeps it not in an artificial state, but in a it just seems to.
well, and
they
it's
stay crisper,
protected.
they stay-
Yeah, they're perfect. I mean, until like 2 weeks ago, we were still eating sweet potatoes that could have been picked yesterday. It was amazing.
Potatoes that are done like that seem like new potatoes in the spring.
Okay, all right. So that's great to know that it does work, because I said I'm going to try that with those too. Seems to work really well for Jerusalem artichokes as well. Any root crops seem to stay. I don't keep a lid on it. I just make sure, the main thing is you don't want it wet or they'll sprout and start growing, and you don't want it dry or they'll start to shrivel. So just a little bit of moisture. I guess something over it, like what he uses, would be beneficial. All right, well, thank you all for listening to me talk on and on and on. I really appreciate it. Thank you.